Happy Chinese New Year. January 22nd is the first day of Lunar New Year for 2023. Supposed to be a rabbit year. So we are here to talk about our Chinese New Year memories, our traditions, with my co-host Amani here. And we have a great guest, Dr. Ping, also from Sichuan. Dr. Ping actually is a doctor degree in electrical engineering, and he worked for 20 years, then become a math teacher in high school, and now is teaching homeschool and charter school. So we're so happy he's here joining us, and great stories. And Dr. Ping, go ahead to introduce yourself to our audience.
Hello. Yeah, as Lily said, that my degree is in electrical engineering, and I grew up in China during the Cultural Revolution. I was fortunate to be young enough that I was able to go to college. And after college, I went to Canada for my master's degree. Then in 1995, I moved to Indianapolis. And later on, I became an American, like the freedom and also the American spirit. And in 2011, I decided to become a high school math teacher. And so I taught in a small Christian college prep school for 7 years, and I saw problems in America's education. So in 2018, I started my nonprofit organization called Poema Institute. It's trying to figure out what is the best education model for today's children. And also, I became an independent teacher, kind of work as a contractor at different homeschool co-ops and some private schools. I also teach online and teach and tutoring online. And so, yeah, I definitely have a lot of concern about America's education, but today we are going to talk about New Year's, Chinese New Year. So we'll save that for later days.
Yeah, for people who don't know about Chinese New Year, traditional Chinese culture, and this is our biggest festival, holiday, not just in China, but in lots of Asian countries, who celebrate Chinese New Year. And traditionally, that we will need to clean the house, maybe throw out the old stuff, get a haircut, maybe even get the nails cut and clean. And traditionally, you want to hang some Chinese red lanterns, but I don't have a traditional red lantern. I have the little one here that I hang up at my house. And then they call the couplets, which is auspicious, lucky symbols that say, for example, it's always come with one pair. So this one says, 万事如意, like everything goes smoothly as you wish. And this one is 福到我家, happiness is at my home. So all those auspicious and signs. Of course, my favorite Chinese memory is as a kid, you get a red pocket money that you open up and there's a cash inside. Of course, when I was growing up, we were too poor to even have this red pocket. So I would get on my knees after the family big like a reunion dinner is over, which is not ours, and I would get on my knees to say, 拜年了, like Happy New Year, Grandma, Uncle, Aunt. And they just hand me cash from their pocket. So I can save their cash to buy candies, buy office, school supplies. And I always share candies with my friends. And then if you're lucky, you get one piece of new clothing. Since we were, that time, grew up during the Cultural Revolution, everybody was very poor. But still, I got some very nice childhood memories and like that. Then we will, of course, save a whole year to eat lots of food, have extra for next year. And my families will get together and eat for hours. I think my grandma's table is not big enough, so they will like take down a front door to make a bigger table so everybody could, sit together. So my family of 5, and 3 siblings, my mom, dad, my grandparents, and 3 uncles, 1 aunt. So we get together. I mean, still quite lots of people. And normally the dishes are at least 12 dishes. That means every month is good. It's prosperous. So there are 12 months of the year. My uncles will have a drink, Chinese moonshine, sometimes get drunk and throw up and telling jokes and doing drinking games. It's kind of fun memories and I had. And then we were so cold in Chengdu. Then you sit around like a little coal burning stove, and so you can stay warm and wait for New Year to come. And adults will tell me ghost stories to kill time. First, we did not have radio or TV, so we got lots of time in our hands. Then the ghost story is very, very scary, and I know we'll have nightmares. And then next, then sometimes fireworks at 12 a.m. for the New Year, and fireworks supposed to be get rid of the evil spirits to scare them away, and so today, of course, people were do dancing, singing, wear traditional costume, and which is nice. But back then, that's the memory I had, and so I wonder, and Dr. Ping, what is your memory of your Chinese New Year as a child?
Well, yeah, I grew up during the Cultural Revolution, so we were very poor, but we still, so Chinese New Year is the only day of the year that you can eat as much as you wanted. And basically, you just get enough to sustain you. But that day is kind of amazing to us. We're always looking forward. We can eat like meat and eggs and things like that, and we can get new clothes. So that's the only time you get one piece of new clothing. I think, Lily, you talked about before that you wear like patched pants and the shirts and all that. So I was the youngest, so I have 2 brothers. So all my childhood, I just wear their old clothes. So I never really, very rare, I get my own. So, but once a year, I can sometimes I can get the new clothes. Yeah, and also at that time everything is rationed, so you can only much. As I remember, we got like 1 pound of meat per month per person, and that was actually that was for the well-to-do families, because both my parents worked in the factories. They were considered the fortunate ones. If you are people live uh, in the town, or if you are peasants, then you don't have that. Only people working like factories and teachers, and they will consider people working for the government. Then you have some kind of ration. You have something there, but even it's small, but at least you have something. Yeah. So definitely, Chinese New Year is a happy time for all of us. Yeah, we do have some kind of firecrackers, but it's really just not we never had a kind of festival as later on when Deng Xiaoping came to power, right? When the Cultural Revolution was ended, because during the Cultural Revolution, if it's considered as old, then you cannot have it. So the festival was actually New Year festival was considered an old tradition, so you don't have that. So, but you can have a family get to eat that, but that's it. You don't see any like people get together, like you have a huge celebration. You don't have that.
Yeah, we cannot wear what we are wearing today, which is the Chinese traditional outfit. It will be part of the 4 O's out to be destroyed. So Chinese are supposed to just wear mouse jacket, like a mouse jacket, which is like a blue and very boring colors, and to show that we are like loyal to the country, to CCP and to Mao. So that's why we are wearing our happy color, and the red is normally also unhappy color for Chinese culture, especially for New Year celebration. So Amani, you are the one who was born after Mao's Cultural Revolution. So what was your family and Chinese New Year like?
It wasn't that different really, because even though I was born after Mao had already died, and my family was actually would have been considered like middle class family, because my father worked in a university, my mother worked in a bank, so we were like actually pretty well off. But still, like I've mentioned before, our living conditions were extremely poor, and I did not really have an extended family in Chengdu either. My father's whole family basically lived in this other little town that belonging to Chongqing, in another city about a couple hours away. But of course, traveling was very difficult back then. Like if we wanted to go celebrate the Chinese New Year with my father's extended family, would have to take a train for 6 hours, even though it's actually, I think, only maybe 100 miles away. Yeah, but like usually my family would just have a big meal, and my father would just cook like the best meal of the year, and that which would always include fish, because fish is the traditional dish
Yeah.
that has to be included in the southern China's tradition. In the Chinese New Year celebration, fish has to be included, because the word for fish in Chinese is yu, and that's the same pronunciation as another yu that means abundance and prosperity. So yeah, every Chinese New Year, my father would cook a big meal, always included fish. I mean, even though when I was growing up, we had enough food, but stuff like fish and chicken and meat in general was still very, very rare and precious, especially fish. So that was always a good treat to the whole family. Yeah, and another thing that I always have a fond memory of is the fireworks. Like I think by the time I started to have memory, that was in early 80s, and fireworks was produced in China for the Spring Festival. And yeah, we would just like set off fireworks, and the children would just light up tiny little firecrackers and throw them on the street, and just let that noise just the noise was supposed to, like you said, to expel evil spirits and send away the old, and welcome the new year, and which is really fun for kids. And yeah yeah, other than that, we also got like one set of new clothing for the New Year's, and that was always a very exciting thing, because like you both have experienced, um, like clothes like these were still not really available, whether allowed or not. They were not available. There was nobody producing them. So like yeah, we all, especially as children, we also just all wore like the really boring gray, green, or blue military suits that were passed down from older children to us. So like in the New Year's, maybe we get a new jacket that's not so gray and not so blue, and yeah, and that was just like the most exciting part.
I remember my three uncles were sent to countryside called Mao's, down to the mountain campaign, after he used the red guards to make him godlike leader status. And my favorite uncle, I remember, he had to travel like a whole 24 hours bus from like a border of Myanmar in Yunnan back to Chengdu for Chinese New Year gathering. And that's like once a year he come home. He is one of my favorite uncles, so I was so happy to see him. And then when he about to leave, my grandma will cry and cook lots and lots of like roasted meat, braised meat, and cut up that he can store a little bit and have something to eat. You know that I mean, he and two other uncles, they were gone to countryside for like 8 years and 10 years and 12 years, because Mao sent them to be re-educated by peasants, even though Mao used them to achieve his agenda to purge his political enemies. And my uncle was only like 17 when he left his home, and came home 27 and single, because if you date a local girl in Yunnan, then he could never come back to Chengdu, because your household registration would be changed if you marry somebody in the countryside. So it was like a bittersweet happiness and also sadness whenever we have a Chinese New Year, did you have anybody, Dr. Ping, in your family who actually were sent to countryside during the Mao's Cultural Revolution?
Yeah, both my two brothers and two sisters, they all went to the countryside. Yeah, but not as long as your uncles. I think they were there for like 4 or 5 years, kind of like that. Yeah,
Did they
like
come back to eat the Chinese New Year meal with you?
yes, yeah, they will come back, and so I think the Chinese New Year, that's the only time you have to visit your family. And now my family actually is you'll consider, I guess you'll consider as a upper middle class, because my dad was a executive. He actually is a party official in a factory. But even at that level, we are still, by today's standard, we are pretty poor. Yeah. So the only thing we got, actually something worth something, is that we have a radio set. We get the radio. That probably is the only thing that worth something in my household.
So I dream to have a radio when I was little, because my parents were very low workers level
Mhm.
inside of state factories. Even though my dad
Mhm.
was a part of a CCP and he was a
Mhm.
member, but he
Right.
illiterate, so they could not promote him because he
Oh,
cannot
okay.
read and write, and so he just stays at the bottom of the workers, like floor work group leader. So we got, like
Mhm.
you said, we actually got the 2.8 pounds of protein coupons per month for family of 5. That means all the eggs,
Mhm.
all the meat combined, it's 2.8 pounds for family of 5 a month. So I just remember I was hungry all the time.
Yeah.
You dream about
Right.
food. That's why everything tastes great. I still remember those, and taste of those food. But you eat the same thing today, they just don't taste as good because when you were starving, everything tasted wonderful. And my neighbor had a radio because, like you said, they were higher up in the state factory. They made more money, and I just remember that sometimes I will hear a little bit classic music from my neighbor's
Mhm.
radio during the news break, just briefly
Mhm.
about 1 minute, and I would beg them to say, can I come to your house? Just listen to that and 1 minute break of classic music, and I really love it. It touched my heart, and it's like something touched my soul. And I said, I promise
Yeah.
I will be very quiet, will not bother you. You can continue eat your dinner. And so I will go there, just listen, in just like keep that low and like this close, just immerse myself into that beautiful piano or violin,
Yeah.
and my heart will be like so touched. And sometimes I feel like I don't know why, but my tears will come out by listening to
Oh,
that music.
wow.
And I just said, wow, this is so beautiful. And I wish I could have a radio. But I told my dad said, we don't have money. It's difficult. I'm just trying to keep you guys fit. So that,
Right. Right.
another memory, I don't know how you lived, but we lived 8 families and shared one row house, workers row house with one bathroom. So to get it clean before Chinese New Year, then we had to use a big wood bucket container and mix with
Mhm.
hot water. Then I would sit in there and wash myself, get clean. And my mom will help me with my hair, but without the conditioning. When she brushed my hair to wash it, it
Yeah.
really hurt, like pulling my long hair really hard. And
Right. Right.
but at least you got to get clean. And
Right.
once a month, I would take a actual bath inside of that, like a wood wash basin or something. And so when you lived that time, did you also share like a kind of like a row house? I mean, like, did you have your own place? I mean, what was like
Yeah. Like,
Dr. P?
we had our own kind of apartment, because uh, my dad was kind of a party official, and he was we called secretary, uh, called secretary. So he was actually the kind of like a vice CEO kind of thing. Like, yeah, so he's pretty high. He was a soldier. He fought in the Civil War, and he was injured. So when he came to Sichuan as part of as a military officer, so he kind of retired from the military and became a party secretary in a factory. And the factory actually is pretty big. It's there were like almost 10,000 workers there. So we were lucky that we have our own apartment. But if you want to take a bath, you still have to go to the factory, have a public bathhouse, and so you go there and you have some. So basically, just like what do you call that? It's we don't have. I mean, it's hard to imagine because in America, the bath you get the shower and all of that, but in China, basically you just get a faucet, kind of like the kitchen faucet you got there. So you have hot water and cold water, and that's what we have. And we actually never heard of like shampoo or it's always just a bar of soap. We just use that, to clean us. Yeah, I didn't know what is a conditioner until I get to Canada. I said, oh wow, you have shampoo, then you have another conditioner. Yeah.
Right, they give you powder. I think it's like some kind of powder to wash clothes, like laundry detergent powder. And you're right, the faucet. We share one community faucet outdoors, so I had to go there and use a container to get water. My dad is a worker, but he's smart to build a water container to store the water in case water runs out. So we have some kind of concrete storage in the outdoor kitchen. First time I took a factory shower, it was like, oh my gosh, like so many women all in there, like 3 or 4 of them fighting for one shower head. But like I was a teenager, but after that shower, hot shower, I feel great. I feel totally, it's like never been so clean in my life. But I mean, like later when things got better, I could go to my aunt and factory to share shower with them. So Amani, what was your parents like? Did they have their own apartment, or you had to share cooking facilities and bathroom facility?
Yeah, we were lucky too. Like we were kind of middle class, so we lived in a 2-room apartment that was designated by my father's work. So we didn't have to share a kitchen with anybody else, but we did have to share a bathroom, which is just a hole on the ground, like everybody else's. That's outside, so we had to share that with other families. But we did have a tiny little room that was designated to be a kitchen with a faucet in it and a gas stove. So to wash would have been very difficult. But like my father was kind of like your father, he was very handy, so he used bricks and plaster, and he built a little sink around that faucet. So we would like put water in there and mixing hot water and use a towel to dab ourselves and just wash like that. Yeah, it wasn't until I went to college in Beijing that I had used the shower for the first time, and that was in the school's public bath. So like we had to buy bath tickets for it. It wasn't free, like even though we paid for the tuition fee, but still you have to buy additional tickets to use the public bath. So you go in there, it's just like how you described of the factory bathhouse. It's like you go in there and there's 4 or 5 girls all trying to share one shower heads, and it was just very awkward in the beginning, but once you get used to it, and yeah, like you said, there's hot water coming down, it just feels so nice and clean. But like college students, like we were in college, and I was like, because it wasn't cheap, like the bath tickets were not cheap, like so in order to save money, we kind of just like maybe showered once a week for the girls. Like for the boys, some of them maybe just showered like once a month just to save money. Which is very, very ironic, because people here think everything is free in a socialist country, but the truth is nothing is free in a socialist country. Even like taking a bath, you have to pay and buy tickets for it. So that was just this was like in the 90s, so it wasn't that improved by then. Yeah.
So let me ask you, Amani. I left China in 1988, and also that Dr. Ping also left earlier, maybe in the 90s. But you come over 2009, so you were in Beijing working because of the economical reforms that China become richer. So the Chinese New Year got to be a lot better off, and people always had now plenty of food to eat for Chinese New Year, and they even had a TV to watch, like some entertainment, even though it's from CCTV, like a once a year big celebration, and what was a big contrast? And talk about our childhood versus later. Before you left China, like 2009, you see this pretty big like a wealth increase. You know, of economic reform. People got richer, had more food to eat, and better clothes to wear. Right?
I think that's the major contract. It's like food was more, and there was more variety, and easily accessible, and clothing too. Like you know, by the 90s, like you can basically buy pretty clothes like these, and yeah. By I think after I graduated from university, I was like living in the dormitory room of the radio station that I worked at, and yeah, during the Chinese New Year, so I would like try to get my holidays, and that would be paid holidays. So yeah, so it wasn't so bad. So I would still go home to visit my parents, and I could actually fly back. Like for the first time, I actually took an airplane in my life, and it was just amazing. And of course, I got airsick very, very badly. I almost threw up. But yeah, it was as opposed to like before when I was in college in 1995, 1997. When I had to go home for Chinese New Year, I had to take like a 42-hour train with all of my other classmates, and the train was just so crowded with people standing, sitting on the like everywhere. Like you couldn't even open the windows, otherwise people would be climbing in through the windows. And I remember sitting in the hard seat. Those are called hard seats. They're hard. I remember sitting in my hard seat for 30 hours straight because I couldn't even stand up. There were people lying under my feet, and I couldn't go to the bathroom. So I did not even drink any water because I was afraid if I go to the bathroom, I wouldn't be able to find my way back because it's just so crowded.
Yeah.
Because all the people were going home for Spring Festival. Yeah, but by the time I was working, that would be in early 2000s. Yeah, I could actually afford to fly, and yeah, that was just much better.
Yeah, much better. So, Dr. Kim, when was the last time you actually went to China for your Chinese New Year's family gathering? Do you remember when was the last time you went?
Whew. I think it's close to maybe 2008, kind of that. Yeah, that time frame. So definitely things has changed, and by that time everybody has television, everybody has TV sets, and my brother even had a car that so kind of private car. Yeah, it's pretty big difference from the 90s to the 2000 to that decade. And of course you can buy everything pretty much. Like when I was young, like for the Spring Festival, like we all get one set of new clothes that like my mom has to make them because you couldn't buy that from the stores. So yeah.
Now you can
so
just go use money buy
lots
of clothes from stores. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big. It was a big difference in terms of TV. Yeah, it was like it's like my family started to have a TV set in early 80s, and it was like really simple, old one, black and white, very simple, like that had like 2 or 3 channels. But by the time I graduated university, it was like everybody had like 3 TVs in their house, in their apartments, and yeah, there were like over 100 channels to choose from. So just the simple variety of products and services and entertainment programs that were available just in 20 years time, it was just amazing.
Yeah, lots of shows to watch now, but of course the biggest one still the CCTV 春节联欢晚会. I remember in the 90s, that was last time I probably went home for Chinese New Year from United States. In like I think probably like 1996, and when we lived in Hong Kong, it was closer to go home, with my and that time only 2 kids, not 3 kids, and visit. But it was still very cold in Chengdu because the central planning that time, like if you live south of Yangtze River, you don't get the natural gas heating, so everybody's still burning coal to heating up place. And I just remember it's like, from Hong Kong even to mainland China for Chinese New Year, we were freezing cold in the winter. And just it's you can tell Hong Kong is still just a lot more prosperous, and that time still under British rule. We actually witnessed the turnover 1997, and I miss Chinese New Year. I wanted to go back visit my family and friends, but 2019 I was planning to go back to visit, and then someone discovered me speaking around the country about our stories and anti-communism talks, and they threatened me to say, you better not come back to China. And I say, oh, I better not. And I'm targeted already. I don't want to disappear. And so 2019, I had to cancel my trip. And so I haven't been back to China since 2015. That's lots of years now. And I miss my family, friends. I miss the good food. And, there's some things you just cannot get in the United States. What you get, you only get it when you go back to your hometown, And so what do you think about this year? This year is pretty sad because with COVID, at the beginning was zero COVID lockdown. People were hungry, economy was hurt, and after the white paper protest, then all the restrictions were lifted overnight, and now you see people. And of course, the infection rate, the death rate. I even don't know. I never trusted official numbers, but we see the videos come from China, from like underground. People are not going to have a good Chinese New Year this year at all. I mean, praying for those people who are, really sick and dying, and some don't have a medicine. Some don't even have a cremation spot, and the hospital were so overcrowded, and it's basically collapsing of this China's socialist medicine system. And it's horrible. It's like, just grab, I heard this old man dying alone at home, did not want his son to spend money, time, and come back to stay with him. He left his son a goodbye message. It was just, it's so heartbroken to listen to him. Did you hear anything about your families at all, how they are doing?
Yeah, my side is okay. Both of my parents passed away. Like my dad passed away in the 80s, and my mom died about 10 years ago. So just my two brothers and two of my sisters, actually, they immigrated to one in Canada, one in United Kingdom. So basically, my brothers and their families, they live in a kind of small town. So far I haven't heard anything bad. But my brother-in-law, who live in Chengdu, like his whole family had COVID. So right now is pretty bad. I mean, I heard some horror stories, like from a friend of mine, and her dad passed away. But in the death certificate, and you cannot say it's because of the COVID. You have to say something else.
So they say they're trying to cover it up. They're trying to cover it up, or like the real death numbers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's awful. I hope they're doing okay. Their symptoms are not too bad. I mean, if you're young, you don't have an underlying medical condition, they should be okay, recover from it.
Right. So from what I hear, I mean, even though a lot of old people died, but the most serious cases actually are the young. I mean, not young, not the old, not the children, but in between, like 20 to 50 years old. There's a lot of serious cases, and it's kind of weird because we have the same variant, like called XBB, which someone joking, that's kind of the nickname of our friend Xi, like Xi Bao Bao. So
that's the German, yeah.
Yeah. So in America, it's not that serious, but in China, you got very serious lung infection, and your lung became what they call that. It's basically
why they call it white
lung. The white lung. Yeah. Right. It's like lung become a kind of like a fiber. I don't know why. I don't know why it was that serious in China, but not here in the United States.
Well, they talk about it's a potential another variant. So some people can get a positive, then become a negative, get better, then all of a sudden get affected again positive, then symptoms are so much worse. There's a young, beautiful lady just died from second infection. She was in her 20s. Oh, it's so sad to watch her video talking about. She said her cough is like a knife is cutting her throat. and she was coughing, and she
Yeah.
passed away. So I'm just like keep Chinese people this New Year in your prayers. And have you heard anything from your family, friends, Amani?
No, I no longer talk to my family inside China anymore, so I haven't heard anything about them. But yeah, like I've heard a lot of horrible stories like you guys have heard from my friends who still have families inside China. Yeah, and I want to say this is not the first time this has happened. Like I lived in Beijing during SARS. It was exactly the same thing. 2003. It was because the SARS was already spreading like wildfire in the southern provinces, and it was by the end of like 2002, and by the beginning of 2003, like by the time of Spring Festival or Chinese New Year, it was already spreading very very badly in Beijing. But yeah, we were not hearing anything about it. Like even as someone who was working inside the government's radio, like nobody was talking about it. Like everyone just knew to stay quiet on it. And I actually read it from like an English language magazine. I think it was Time or something. It was like a foreign language a magazine that the Rolling Stones, the rock band, the classic rock band, was scheduled for a concert in Beijing earlier that year, and they had to cancel because of SARS, the concerns of SARS. And that was the first time I realized, wow, this sounds serious. Like maybe, maybe this needs to be heard. Like people need to start taking precautions. Like I would actually put on a mask, like when I was going outside, and people would stare at me like I was an alien or something. But yeah, so that situation lasted several months until May of 2003. All of a sudden, they admitted it. They're like, there's an outbreak of SARS in Beijing. We have to control it, and then there's immediate shutdown. They set up like temperature screening in front of our office building, and then we were given like masks, yeah, there were 16 layers in each mask, according to the expert. 16 layers. It literally was like this thick. I wish I had kept one to show you guys. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but that was so it's not the first time that they've done this. It's like they go from one extreme to the other. SARS was controlled, obviously, and at the time, because I think, and it didn't spread to the world, I think for two reasons. One, SARS is not as contagious as COVID. And two, at the time, 2003, the Chinese were not allowed to travel around the world so easily. So that was lucky. It got contained very, very, very fast. But I had no idea how that came to be. Of course, as propaganda sector, we immediately got directives from the Central Propaganda Ministry on how to report on SARS, like how to guide the public opinion in the correct direction, how to basically, there are like items and items and items of what we can say to basically use this disaster as a way to boost the party's image. Like, we are fighting this. Our party's leadership is what you should trust to contain this virus. It was like, it was exactly the same as how COVID happened. So I was not surprised at all when COVID happened. But it was like only after I came to America, I read a book written by Philip Penn, I believe, called Out of Miles' Shadow. And only through that book, I learned it was because of a medical doctor, Dr. Jiang Yanyong, who petitioned to the central government over and over and over again to warn them about SARS in 2003, and to tell them that this cannot be contained unless you make the knowledge public. The public needs to be aware of this virus. And by May, the government decided to take up his advice, but not without punishing him. He has been under house arrest ever since, and he's forbidden to travel abroad to see his children ever again. So when I read that, I just realized Dr. Jiang Yanyong's brave action actually saved hundreds, if not thousands, of people's lives, probably including my own. So for that, I'm extremely grateful. These unsung heroes, like the 8 doctors that, when COVID started, the CCP government arrested 8 doctors who were whistleblowers and who warned about COVID, and they called them misinformation spreaders, rumor spreaders, and arrested them and persecuted them. these people are the people that I am extremely grateful for, and I see, a lot of hope in these people.
And Dr. Lee died actually, I mean, in his 30s, and
Right.
it's a censorship cost lives, and the Chinese government CCP always censors truth information. What happens, I think some people might not know, all the officials from governors to mayors, they all appointed, not elected by people. It's a one party
Right.
dictatorship. So they don't want to tell the bad news to the top central government and to say something's going on and make them look bad if you report bad, so then you might lose your jobs. And so people are afraid as officials to tell the truth. So since they don't care about people, they're not elected from the people,
Right.
they just don't care about people's life sufferings and deaths until something they cannot control anymore. And then they start to correct. And you also know that the China's medical care system is a totally socialist medicine model, government controlled, doctors, hospitals, clinics, and we have probably one of the lower bed percentage too, compared with the developed countries. So there are already serious shortage of beds. And then when you do not prevent pandemic from happening, then people just all have to, just run to hospitals for whatever problems they have. It's all very centralized. And so you see people, it's like so many people go to hospital. If you're not sick, in fact, you will get affected because it's just so crowded. And then they don't have enough medicine. They don't have enough, the medical care staff. And it's just so sad to watch what is happening. And you see the similarities in America here during the COVID. You see more Twitter files come out, how our federal government and colluded with big tech and pressure them to censor people's voices. And if you have different opinions as scientists, as doctors, and then they're going to ban you. It's like, why are we doing the same thing that Chinese government is doing to cost human lives? It's just beyond me, because the truth, you let the people judge what they want to do, but you have to let the different opinions to come out, or truth to come out, and people can do research on their own. But you want the government collude with the tech companies to censor opinions. That's why I keep saying, are we become like China? It's very scary. More and more truth is going to come out, actually. I mean, lots of Americans died here too. And in terms of earth treatment and the so-called misinformation they want to censor, that's like who decides? It's like China CCP decides what you can share at public place, what can be totally shut down, banned. My college account with 59 friends, classmates there are restricted. I cannot talk to my college students, classmates now. I don't know what they posted even. Then they cannot see my post and I cannot see their post. So they're still doing that every day. So I don't, I'm just hoping that people are going to be, safe. And if they cannot travel, normally Chinese New Year, it's the biggest peak traveling season of the year. Millions will go to take trains, buses, and airplanes and go home to be united with their families. I bet with this situation now, lots of people probably will just not travel anymore. And it's kind of sad because they might have to, stay home by themselves. And the thing is, there are no medicines, lack of medicines, and the shelves are empty. It's like how many seniors, how many people are going to die from this? Just like I do pay attention every day to watch for that. So if you hear anything, let us know. Maybe we can even, do another, video about this. Yeah. So you want to say something else before we wrap up?
I just kind of quickly add to that. Right now, the things are happening in the cities, and so but the next peak will be in the rural areas, and where there's really no medication. So a lot of old people will die. So we don't know. It's going to be pretty bad in China.
Amani, what do you think?
Well, I just hope and pray that people stay healthy and safe and can celebrate their Chinese New Year in at least, if not abundance and prosperity, but at least in health and safety. I do hope. I do feel there is hope in this new generation of people, because like you mentioned before, there was the white paper movement that actually compelled the governments to open up, and also like when we were talking about fireworks, I've seen young people, because the Chinese government has banned fireworks in recent years. but the young people are just defying that ban, and they're
Right.
setting off fireworks, firecrackers to celebrate freedom or Chinese New Year or whatever in the streets, and where the police would be like chasing them on their motorcycles. It was really a fun, kind of fun to watch that spirit of rebellion and defiance and standing your ground is reviving in this generation of young people. So I do hope, I do see hope, and I do hope that in the future, China will have a chance to return to its traditional culture, traditional roots, traditional values, not the communist imposters, so to speak. That has nothing to do. Like, I think like people here or generally in Western countries, they confuse China with communist China. Those are two different concepts. The communist values have nothing to do with Chinese culture. I do hope, yeah, in the future there will be a chance for the traditional China to return, to be restored.
That's very well said. We hope so too, and that's why we get together to speak here on this channel, and so that hopefully we will inspire more immigrants who are joining us to tell their stories. And we are hopeful. And traditionally Chinese, we will always say, 春节快乐，恭喜发财, like a happy Chinese New Year, wish you to be rich or wish you to be prosperous. That's how we will end today. And if you like our Immigrant Speak series, please share, like this video, subscribe to our channel, push that subscribe button. And I have been shadow banned by Facebook, and so when I share my videos, I don't get many shares or likes. I hope people, can do that for me to spread our messages. Also, we have a new immigrant community on locals.com, and you can become a member and get our messages from there and support our channel. Thank you very much, and 给大家拜年了. And thank you, Mani. Thank you, Dr. Ping. You have a good Chinese New Year.
Happy Chinese New Year.
春节快乐，
恭喜发财，
春节快乐，恭喜发财。